Magandang araw po sa inyo. Welcome sa isa na namang episode ng online series ni Inang Pamantasan kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako si Maybeline Pacia mula sa class of 2013 at ako ang inyong Learning from Home buddy sa episode na ito. Kilala mo ba sila Shaira Lina, CJ De Silva, at Ruth Lodiga? Si Sheldon Cooper at si Mary Adler. Sila ay ilan lamang sa mga tinatawag na gifted, mga totoong tao at mga karakter sa mga movies or series na nagpakita ng kakaibang galing na talaga namang nakakamangha. Sa kanilang angking husay, napapasabi talaga ang karamihan sa atin ng sana all. Ngunit sino nga ba sila at bakit sila tinuturing na gifted? Are they as perfect as how the media portrays them? What really separates them from the rest of us? Tara, samahan ninyo akong alamin ang sagot sa mga tanong na ito. Ang episode na ito ay pinamagatang Understanding and Supporting High Ability Learners. In the next few minutes, we will try to understand high ability learners, their common characteristics, and their unique set of needs. After which, we will attempt to identify some strategies that will help support and meet their needs inside the classroom. So, let's begin. Pag-usapan muna natin kung sino nga ba ang mga high-ability students. What makes one a high-ability student? Siyempre, kailangan muna natin i-define ang term na high ability. So the term high ability is used to indicate high potential and or performance across the full suite of human abilities. Sila yung mga individual na nagtataglay ng mataas o mahusay na potensyal o performance sa isa o higit pang larangan o uri ng kakalahan na maituturing angat or advanced kumpara sa ina-expect na kakayahan within their age cohort. So similar siya din sa mga term na karaniwang ginagamit natin such as gifted, talented, or genius. Pero mas encompassing yung term na high ability since it accounts for the full suite of human abilities or yung iba't ibang domains ng ating mga kakayahan. Before we talk about the different domains of human abilities, tignan muna natin yung pagkakaiba ng performance sa potential. Since very important ito upang gamit natin maunawaan ang special population na ito. Ginamit ko illustration dito yung iceberg wherein yung tip na visible sa karamihan ay nagre-represent sa performance. Performance indicates a person's knowledge, experience, and skills. So ito yung mga natitrain o mga nahahasang kakayahan. And halimbawa ng isang performance, ng isang high performance ay, let's say, high grades in school or kagalingan sa arts o sa pagsulat na maaaring maipakita sa mga output ng isang individual. On the other hand, what is not visible to many is the potential. Ito yung bigger, more important than the hidden part ng iceberg na katago siya sa ilalim ng ocean. So, potential includes innate abilities, attitudes, motives, behavior traits that are present at birth. So, ito rin yung mga katangian na kadalasan hindi nakukuha sa training or practice. So, continuing dun sa example natin kanina na high grades in school, when talking about potential, we should ask, does the student have the capacity to perform well in a future role that will require greater responsibilities and more complex thinking? So, isa pang simpleng halimbawa, tignan natin yung musical abilities, particularly yung pagkanta o pag-awit since we Filipinos are well known for being good singers or great singers. So, I know kids who were enrolled by their parents in to voice lessons left and right for several years. But they still did not learn how to sing well because they didn't have the innate capacity or maybe even the interest in it. Of course, this is a simplistic example, In reality, maraming factors that come into play, but the idea is you need to have excellent potential in order to perform excellently. In the same way, potential may not always translate to performance. May mga sitwasyon kung saan hindi nabibigyan ng enough opportunities ng isang batang may mataas na potential kaya hindi na-actualize yung real potential niya. Ito rin yung dahilan kung bakit natin ito pinag-uusapan, kung bakit mahalagang ma-identify natin yung potential ng isang bata maaga pa lang para mabigyan natin sila ng angkop na suporta habang sila ay nasa care pa natin, bilang mga teachers o mga professionals in the field of education. So now, tignan naman natin yung four domains of high ability. Sabi natin kanina, high ability refers to students whose ability is more advanced than that of similar age peers across one or more of these four domains. These domains include intellectual, physical, creative, and social. Intellectual ability usually manifests in a broad range of academic-focused subjects. So, mataas na ability sa science, sa matematika, yan ang ilan sa mga halimbawa. No? Kasama rin dito yung speed of learning and complex thinking patterns. Yung kakayahan nila na ma-understand or ma-comprehend yung mga komplikado mga problema, and they are able to process those complex materials. For physical ability naman, it often presents in physical education or dance. Whereas with creative ability is of course likely to find expression in the arts. And yung social ability naman will cut across a variety of subject areas. So kadalasan siyang nakikita in leadership. One important thing to note here is that there is often an interplay between these domains. So for example, the young person with high ability in both physical and creative domains may become a highly skilled and expressive dancer. So, diba? So, nandun yung interaction ng dalawang domains. So, isa lang yun sa mga halimbawa kung paano nag-interact itong four domains na to. Another similar perspective is Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. Alam ko marami sa atin ay pamilyar na rito. Sa madaling salita, ang sinasabi ni Gardner dito, intelligence is multidimensional. It can mean being self-smart, being nature-smart, or being word-smart, to name only a few. Ang pagiging mahusay ayon kay Gardner ay maaaring ma-express sa iba't ibang larangan. Taliwas sa common knowledge na ito ay makikita lamang sa matataas na grado o kahusayang pang-akademiko. This further shows us that high-ability students will come from a variety of backgrounds. Iba't iba rin siya ng mukha. Gayun din, high ability can coexist with learning difficulties or disabilities, or even physical or mental disabilities. Alright, so since medyo marami-rami na tayong napag-usapan, let's take a light walk muna. I have prepared here a simple game. I will show or present three statements about high ability, na kailangan nyo lang gawin ay identify kung ito ay true or false. I-comment nyo lang yung sagutin nyo within 5 seconds. Okay, let's start. First, true or false? All high-ability students get good grades. You have 5 seconds to comment your answer below. Okay, so ang sagot, false. So the truth is high-ability students can suffer with underachievement. So normally, yung mga academic concepts come easily to a high-ability student, especially kung ang pag-uusapan natin is yung sa intellectual domain. Hence, these students are often identified in the early years of elementary school through their high grades or report cards. However, many parents and teachers are later dismayed when witnessing a decline in these objective forms of assessment. Maraming possible na reasons kung bakit ang isang intellectually highly able or high ability student may not be performing according to expected academic standards or are underachieving. So a high ability student can become accustomed to the ease by which knowledge is gained and simply give up when the going gets too tough. So mabilis silang mag-give up. No? Kasi sanay sila na madali lang nilang nakukuha yung mga lessons nila. That could be one possibility. Another would be a high ability student can also forsake academics for the purpose of exploring social dynamics, probably propelled by a strong desire to fit in socially. So kadalasan kasi sila yung mga, yun nga, natatangi o naiiba sa lahat. Kaya gusto nila mag-fit in sila. So maybe the energy, no, the time and the energy of the student gets directed doon sa pag-fit in socially. That's another possibility. Another would be a high ability student who is suffering from depression may see no logical reason to bother with her work. It just doesn't make sense in the student's head. So kanina lang sinabi natin na some of them struggle with psychological disorders or disabilities. So another possibility would be a high ability student may decide to challenge norms by rebelling against the conventions of standardized measures of academic success. So I personally have seen students in my workplace leave the school due to academic underachievement. To say that supporting them is challenging is definitely an understatement. So counselors and teachers and school administrators have to consider a lot of factors, no? Such as your family background, their self-concept, their access to academic resources, among others. But we do it because they do need academic support. Just as how their underachievement is a product of the dynamic interplay between various internal and external factors, their academic success will also happen when the village around them hold hands and support them. Individual academic support, providing classroom accommodations, as well as conducting case conferences are some of the useful strategies that schools can adopt in order to assist these learners. Okay, so we're done with our first statement. Now, for the next one, balik tayo sa ating game. True or false? High ability students are proficient in all learning processes. 5 seconds, comment your answer below. And time is up. Isa siyang myth, so it's false. The truth is, high ability students can suffer with asynchrony. So before I discuss asynchrony, let me tell you about Ken. Hindi niya tunay na pangalan. Si Karen, isa sa mga former students ng Philippine Science High School where I am currently working. Every PSI student during his time knew him. So every school assembly, Ken would be called up on stage to receive awards. And these are not just small-time awards, but big-time awards. So awards that were bagged from highly competitive international mathematics competitions. Because he was so good, students began using his name to coin a term that denotes out of this world abilities. So for example, those who are excellent in sports were the Ken of Frisbee or Ken of swimming, for example. So although everybody in the school during that time knew him, bihira siyang makita around people. In fact, you will only notice him on campus whenever he's up on stage, medals around his neck, and trophies in both hands. He does not speak much in class, and he is very uncomfortable around people. So one day, he walked for around 5 kilometers alone just to escape a research competition he did not want to be a part of at all. So one will easily think that Ken can perform excellently in any contest or in front of any crowd because of his exposure in a lot of math contests. But clearly, this really happened. This is a true story. Clearly, Ken still has a long way to go in as far as his public communication and social skills are concerned. So ito yung phenomenon na tinatawag natin asynchrony, which describes the attainment of certain milestones while missing some corresponding components. So katulad ni Ken, sobrang advanced siya sa math, yung skills siya sa math, developing in a very fast pace, but yung social skills niya, mabagal yung pag-develop. So kaya hindi siya sabay, hindi siya pantay, kaya siya tinatawag na asynchronous. So this misconception na lahat sila ay good in all learning processes, this misconception often lead parents and teachers to form unrealistic expectations with regard to overall mastery and can become a source of frustration and discouragement for the high ability student. So my message is let us not become like this to the Kens in our own spheres of influence. Instead, we should always be mindful in spotting areas of asynchronous development and allow them to develop at their own pace. Okay, so that's the second statement. Now, the third and the last statement, true or false. High ability students improve academically on their own and do not need help from their teachers. 5 seconds to comment your answers. Okay, so as expected, it's another myth. So the statement is false. The truth is, high ability students need adults who challenge and support them so they may fully develop their abilities in all dimensions. Yung independent learning, yun talaga yung hallmark of the high ability learner. They like to do things on their own, no? But the reliance on their abilities as a self-directed learner can be devastatingly overextended. So as mentioned in one of the previous statements, high ability doesn't mean that all tasks are considered equal. So in addition to often requiring direct intervention in regard to social learning and academic areas outside of expertise, katulad ni Ken na pinag-usapan natin kanina, a high ability student can also struggle with maintaining vision and motivation. In the absence of focus, the intensity which drives the child onward can end up being directed towards less desirable pursuits, even resulting in problems such as depression, anxiety, and delinquency. So again, the role of adult caregivers is essential in the identification, placement, and intervention. This increases the chances that these learners will receive an individualized, effective, and continuing academic, emotional, and social support that will empower them to realize their fullest potential. So teachers should really understand the needs of their high ability students. This will help them support their academic growth. If the needs of high ability students are not met, they can become disengaged and underachieve. If the learning is too easy, high ability students may not develop resistance o yung tinatawag na grit in psychology. They may also find it difficult to receive and act on feedback. This can further contribute to issues such as unhealthy perfectionism. So again, just to reiterate, we hope that with this understanding, we can identify these students properly while they are still at school at para mabigyan natin sila ng angkop na intervention o support, thereby contributing to the realization of their fullest potential. So yan po yung challenge sa atin ngayon. So the next question, of course, is how do we do that exactly? How do we support them? How do we support these high ability students? So we now suitably move on to the next part of today's episode, which is about supporting high ability students. So let's take these 4 key needs and identify some practical ways by which we can meet them. As we discuss these needs, I would like to invite you to keep in mind yung mga napag-usapan natin facts and misconceptions kanina about these high-ability students para mas maalay natin yung mga suggestions na makikita natin in the next slides. And of course, I recognize that there is a multitude of needs that should be talked about, but these are just four of the top concerns that should be addressed in the classroom level. These are challenge, interaction, higher order thinking, and appropriate task goals. For the first one, we need to recognize that high-ability students need challenging tasks and resources at their point of need. So may bibigyan natin ito sa pamamagitan ng pag-offer ng mga tasks that meet one or more of the following parameters. 1. Include consideration of the reasons for the activity. 2. Contain various possible outcomes. 3. Allow for generalizability of the strategies and processes involved in the task. 4. Provide for deep and complex thinking. And 5. Allow for deep examination of the topic. I think you can now gather that for high ability students, it is important to know why they are doing it, why they are doing a specific activity, and how will that specific activity benefit them. Kailangan makita nila yung added value ng task na binibigay natin sa kanila para ma-engage sila at magkaroon sila ng malalim na pagkaunawa doon sa topic at hand. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kailangan complex na agad yung activity. Ang mahalaga ay mahalaga o may value ito at dapat ma-communicate natin ito sa students. And I think ito na yung nagiging problema, yung pag-communicate. Kasi kadalasan, hindi natin i-experience sa kanila mabuti yung reason, yung purpose ng mga activities na binibigay natin sa kanila. So para nakitulungan pa tayo, tignan natin itong revised Bloom's taxonomy. So for high ability students, our focus should be on the higher levels of the pyramid, specifically those apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So tignan natin din sa apply. For the activities that encourage application, we should provide high ability students with opportunities to use the information they have gathered in new situations. So halimbawa, simple example lang po ulit. Paano ba nila gagamitin yung mga scientific steps to problem solving in solving the economic problems of the country? Diba? So that is an example of an application activity. Nariyan din yung next level, which is analyze. So in our tasks, do we encourage students to draw connections among ideas? So for example, sa psychology, paano ba nagkakatulad at nagkakaiba-iba yung iba't ibang schools of thought in psychology? So susunod din for the evaluate, here we can assign students to debate on a social issue and let them justify a stand so they can see the pros and cons of both scenarios. We can also do this in the form of essay writing. So finally, at the tip of the pyramid is create. So let the students come up with an original work, maybe through a performance task. Yan, ngayon, nung pandemic, familiar tayo sa word na we became familiar with the term performance task. Pagawain sila ng, for example lang, a song about different mathematical concepts, or maybe even ask them to come up with a research project. So in all levels, we can provide challenge to our high ability students at their own point of view. So the Bloom's taxonomy is a good reference para sa pag-identify, pag-plan natin ng iba't ibang challenging activities for our students. Next would be interaction. So napakahalaga for these students to feel that they are not alone in their experiences. So as teachers, we should provide them activities that increase their engagement with their peers. So this can be done through arranging interaction with other students of similar ability, pwedeng within the class or across classes or across year levels within the school, and pwede rin naman outside the school. So meron mga kasama from other schools. So mahalaga dito yung term na similar ability kasi sila yung makaka-relate o makakaintindi sa isa't isa. Diba? Pwedeng yung interaction ay through formal or informal means. Pwedeng magkaroon lang ng simple excursion activity in a laboratory for our science-oriented students, wherein they can also be joined by students from other levels or even other schools. So that can be a form of interaction for them. Another strategy is to come up with teacher and student interaction, since we know the teachers are experts and of course they are more advanced in the expert in the subject area that they're teaching and can understand the needs of these high ability students. So they can team up to select and work on certain problems. This also helps improve the rapport between the student and the teacher. So ito ay ilan lamang sa mga pwede natin strategies na gawin inside the classroom to again increase interaction among our high ability students. The next one is higher order thinking. High ability students need opportunities to extend their thinking, problem solving, and metacognitive skills. So medyo nag-overlap ito doon sa first need kanina, which is yung challenge. And here, we can see more specific strategies to, sabi nga ng iba, tickle their bright minds. Ano yung mga strategies na pwede natin implement? One could be to use or pose provocative questions, statements, or scenarios to generate discussion. Yung mga what-if questions that make them reflect about themselves, about the world around them, and make them come up with their own stand or their own opinions about the matter. Another is to require students to explain concepts using analogies, similes, and metaphors. The third strategy would be to pose problems with no single solution or one that has multiple pathways to a solution. So this can actually be a challenge since sanay tayo na may single absolute answer to our problems, especially sa math, for example. Naalala ko tuloy nung still high school ako, in one of our math classes, I was pushing for a different solution to a problem. I had the same correct answer, but since may point kasi yung solution, syempre tinitignan din yun when checking our answers. So I had to raise my hand and show my own solution to our teacher. Nakakatuwa naman kasi yung teacher ko at the time asked me to share the solution to the class, not to shame me, but to actually show to the rest of the class a different way of solving the mathematical problem. So this should be the way to go, especially with high ability students in our classroom. We can easily get frustrated din kasi kapag yung teachers mismo nila yung hindi nakikita kung ano yung nakikita nila. So we should always encourage them, our students in general, to think of alternative ways to address problems. Since in real life, ganoon naman talaga yung nangyayari, di ba? Wala naman talagang single solution to real life problems. Other strategies na pwede natin gawin or i-apply, i-implement sa classroom to encourage higher order thinking sa ating mga students ay ito, modeling a range of problem-solving strategies using concept mapping to assist students to make connections between and within ideas, and creating a makerspace in your classroom to encourage creativity, critical thinking, and design thinking. All these provide high-ability students with opportunities to help them become engaged in class. Alright, so yung huli naman is task goals or appropriate task goals. High-ability students need appropriate and realistic goals. The teachers should provide tasks that include explicit goals and clear outcomes. They should also explain the teaching strategies and processes used. So they can do this by asking high-ability students to, number one, identify types of texts, resources, and sources that could address a given problem. Number two, use content of the text or resource to complete more complex activities or solve a set of more complex problems. Number 3, change or synthesize the content of multiple texts or resources. And number 4, use texts or resources collaboratively. If they are not engaged with challenging learning goals, problems will arise. High-ability students may not develop the ability to work hard at a task that does not come easily. This may mean that they don't develop grit, yung sinasabi natin kanina. High-ability students may also develop a tendency to avoid risk. So we have to keep challenging them. So with this, let me just pose these questions as a challenge to our teachers and help them become more aware of these four needs that we've studied. So how do you currently provide a challenge for high ability students? What could you do differently? How do you foster like ability interactions between high ability students? What could you do differently? And lastly, what do you use to set appropriate goals for your high ability students? What could you do differently? Alright, so I hope that you got something there, and I hope that you still remember. Let's recall actually, can you guys comment below kung ano yung apat na key needs that we talked about? Okay, so remember, challenge, interaction, higher order thinking, and appropriate task goals. Okay, so now that we know what makes them different, let's not forget that these students are still students. They are developing, they are growing. They need us adults to guide and nurture them. Like other people, bata man o matanda, kailangan nilang maglaro, to have fun, and relax at times in order to prevent burnout. Like all of us, they are imperfect and can make mistakes. During these times, we need to show them kindness and patience so we can teach them how to be kind and patient to themselves as well. I know that these are easier said than done. The unique experiences and challenges among high ability individuals remain complex and even mysterious to a certain extent. But as long as we give attention to their needs, as long as we talk about them with genuine empathy and a regard for their rights, I think that we will be on the right track. So that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I sincerely hope that you learned something meaningful today. Sa inyong mga nakinig, lalo na sa mga tulad kong nasa linya ng edukasyon, ano man ang inyong natutunan, isapuso at gamitin sa angkop na pagkakataon. And of course, with every type of student you have, every single one of them needs our unconditional support. Always remember that. Bago tayo magwakas, huwag kalimutang i-comment ang inyong mga katanungan at mga kuro-kuro tungkol sa ating episode ngayong araw. Huwag din kalimutang i-like at i-share ang episode natin. Sa muli, ako si Maybeline Pacia at sumainyo ang PNU Talks. Maraming salamat.